Wrong Missy is the new Happy Madison film coming straight to Netflix because of their deal with them, which recently just got extended, so that's great. More Adam Sandler Happy Madison productions coming right to Netflix so they can be #1 on trending for like a day or two. Yay for them. This one is directed by the man who previously brought us Father of the Year, starring David Spade, and this movie once again stars David Spade in the lead role, and it's written by two guys who previously wrote The Do-Over starring Adam Sandler and David Spade. So a lot of Happy Madison usuals, of course, coming in to write these films, and this one is no exception. This is the part of the video where I usually describe the plot to you guys, but I'm going to try to put you in the mindset of me when I first heard the plot being described to me, because I was driving home, I was listening to Howard Stern, and they were interviewing David Spade, and I was like, okay, let's just listen to this. And he starts talking about his next film, and it was going to be made by the guy who made Father of the Year, and I was like, oh boy, let's hear what's going to happen. And I was not expecting to hear something so trite and cliche, like to the point where it doesn't sound like it'd be a real movie, but it's a real movie. And for those people who have not seen the trailer or know anything about this movie, the plot is this. So David Spade goes on a blind date with a woman played by Lauren Lapkus, who is absolutely nuts. She's a freak show. She ruins that blind date, and it's just a total embarrassment. A couple days later, he goes to an airport, and he meets up with another Missy, who is way better. She's like totally awesome. She's like supermodel level hot for him, and he's connecting with her so well because they read the same book pretty much. Like, they bump into each other, they switch up their tickets, like, oh no, we're stuck on the airport for another day, but hey, at least oh my gosh, you read this book too? That's so crazy. He thinks he's gonna have a good relationship with this woman. He invites her on a corporate retreat that he's going on, but then he finds out the day of, when he's on the plane, like, oh no, I texted the wrong Missy to come here. I was texting the crazy Missy, who I didn't delete the phone contact for or block on anything. Like, I just invited the wrong Missy, and now I'm going on a corporate retreat with her into like Hawaii or something. So that's the plot of the movie, and I almost had to stop the car because I was like, no, this isn't a real movie. No, this can't be right. No. But of course, a couple weeks later, they dropped the trailer, like, here it is. Like, oh, fuck, this is a real movie. So I already expected before watching the trailer that this was gonna look dumb, but I was not expecting like the level of irritation that I got just from the trailer. I did not want to watch this movie, but my good dumbass friend, insert picture here, forced me to watch it with him on Cast, so that's why I watched this, and it is so awful. It's about as every level of bad as you'd expect from a Happy Madison production. The way the movie opens, like the first joke, David Spade's walking in and he gets a text saying like, hey, I'm at the bar, that's me over there in that dress. And of course she's playing a trick on him so he can walk up to just some random girl with her husband. But of course he believes like that is who I'm meeting up. So he walks up to her and the guy's like, hey, this is my wife. Sorry, dude, you got the wrong person. He's like, okay, I get you trying to protect her from weirdos, but I'm her blind date. And just that first joke, like just the, oh, I'm David Spade and I'm just so stubborn about this that I know for a fact this is my date. Like, when someone would get up and tell you like, hey, that's my wife, wouldn't you expect a guy like David Spade in this movie who seems like he's just like average plain Joe kind of guy, he'd be like, oh, sorry, my mistake, I'll go somewhere else. But instead he's like overly confident, cocky, like, oh, no, this is clearly my date. And of course he just looks like a complete jackass. Lauren Lapkus reveals herself like, oh no, I'm your blind date, I just pulled a prank on you, how funny. And then she keeps like spouting crazy nonsense and yells back at that guy who is about to beat up David Spade and yelling him like, yeah, he's gonna kick your ass, why are you looking at us funny? And it's like, oh my god. David Spade thinks he's gonna like crawl out of the bathroom window, and she follows him into the bathroom watching him try to escape. He falls out, breaks his ankle. She comes out and forcefully puts it in place. Helpful, but still really painful, awkward meeting for those two characters, and not something that you want to see continue in any way, shape, or form, because you know, like, she's gonna be the crazy person, but she's gonna have a heart of gold if we keep exploring this. But we're probably gonna execute it in a way that's really lazy and nonsensical, so we should not follow up with that. But of course, they have to follow up with that. As I said earlier when describing the plot, you'd think that after a date like this, David Spade would be like, okay, blocked, delete the contact, get rid of it, we're not doing that ever again. But he keeps it just so he can have this mix-up with this hot woman who he bumps into and is just like, hey, let's get a drink since we bumped into each other and missed our flights. Oh, you're reading that book? I'm also reading that book. How good. I'm also David Spade. Isn't that attractive? He's like a ladies' man or something. When he asks her to go to this corporate retreat, the way it's structured so the reveal is, oh, you texted the wrong Missy, it's so bad because they don't make it clear if he's already on a plane and they're about to meet up with her, or if he's going to the retreat and she's going to follow him there. Because all of a sudden the wrong Missy shows up, Lauren Lapkus, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're sitting next to me too, like, oh no, what's going on? But why would this Missy anyway show up like so late? Like, when you're already on the plane, why would she then show up like like so late. Usually before you get on a plane, you have that little waiting area where you have to wait to be called up. You'd think she would come up then and be like, hey, we're here, you know, and how come she didn't bring up that fact, like when they were texting, like, hey, I'll meet you there, how about that, or something like that. And instead, because he's assuming it's the Missy from like another state and they're gonna meet in Hawaii, but how come in their text messages when he invites her, how come she's not like, all right, I'll meet you at the gate, or can you pick me up? But of course you realize the only reason they didn't do that is because then the character naturally would spark some confusion, and then she'd have to explain, oh, you're probably not texting the right Missy. The movie would be over and we wouldn't have to worry about this nonsense. But of course everything is structured so stupidly that everything plays out exactly how they want it to, for the sake of laughs and comedy, except nothing is funny. David Spade's whole mode in this entire film is just, oh, I'm the straight guy who's gonna react like, oh, or like do that stupid face, like, something weird's going on, so, And that's like his only mode throughout the entire film. There's also nothing that interesting about him before the movie even starts, just, oh, I'm just your average guy working at a business, the business of which I forgot what they even do, so that's not even that important. But he's just average guy who's friends with Nick Swartzen. He's just the average Joe working, and he's looking for love because he had an ex-fiancée, but she's barely in the movie that much that you forget that she's even a part of it. Like, she is someone who works in the company, but we never see her in the company before they go on the retreat. They just bump into her in the lobby once they get there, like, oh, that's my ex-fiancée. And then you don't get any scenes with her, and it keeps going, and then, oh, there's a scene with her now, so they can have an awkward threesome because Lauren Lapkus thinks it's the best way for them to move on, because she acts like she's like a psychologist, like a therapist. That's a part of her crazy persona, like, oh, she's crazy, but she knows all these things about psychology and therapy, and she can do all these crazy physical stuff as well. And of course, it's all meant for laughs, but the main problem with this movie is that she's too irritating. I know this movie is written to be that way, like, yeah, you're supposed to be annoyed by her, but later when she's revealed to have a heart of gold, she's not that crazy, she's just looking for love like David Spade too, then you see the sweet side of her. But no, she's nuts. Even the stuff later on when they try to do the reveal like, oh, David Spade likes her now, it's only because she's doing something crazy to finally benefit David Spade. You know, a lot of times it's just, I'm doing something crazy and it's embarrassing you, or it's at the expense of you, I'm messing up your life in some way. Finally, when she does something that's for the benefit of David Spade's company, which is brainwashing his boss to, whenever he sees David Spade, he goes, I love that guy, he's great, my best employee. He's thinking of his grandma. So you have plenty of jokes where he's looking at him and describing like, are you gonna bake me cookies, grandma? While looking dead in David Spade's eyes. And that's the only reason why David Spade starts to like her. Like, he sees how crazy she can be, but how it can benefit him. So it's a selfish thing, but it's also almost like a beat him into submission kind of thing too, which is something I want to talk about more than anything else, because yes, this movie is horrible. It's got a lot of horrible jokes, and it's got a lot of bad character writing. Like, Nick Swartzen shows up, and he's not annoying, but he's so boring. None of his jokes land, and he's trying to be the buddy comedic relief to David Spade, but it's just like, you know, so trite. Get him out of the movie. Rob Schneider is cast too. He's playing someone with a physical deformity where his fingers were bitten off, but it looks like he's just doing this, and they put like some latex over it, and it's like, and of course he's acting wacky, he's got a weird voice on, and he's, you know, throwing chum into the waters for their shark cage thing, and they have a really funny scene where a shark busts through the cage and almost kills David Spade, which honestly is pretty funny. I would have loved to see that play out naturally. Just eats David Spade in the movie is over. I joked about that when I watched it. Like, I wish the shark just ate both of these guys in this cage, and just that's how the movie ended. That would be so perfect. And Adam Sandler's wife, who I don't recognize from any other movie, I think like it's been a lot of like limited roles, and this is one that's like much bigger, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but she is not very good in this. Like, you can tell, like, she's not, like, everyone else, the way they're acting, it's annoying. They have annoying jokes paired up with, but you can tell, like, they've been doing this a while. Something about her acting was just really off from everyone else. Like, it feels like someone who's not used to having a role this big is now trying to act with these other people that are more used to it, and it's not cutting out for her. It doesn't help that her character is just the cliche jerk of the company who's always given David Spade like a devilish shit-eating grin, like, like always looking at him whenever he's embarrassed. It's like, oh god, please stop. And always doing just the jerkiest things possible in every scene that she's in. So I could make a long video just discussing everything about this movie, how every joke doesn't land, how every character is so forced and one-dimensional, how the entire premise is basically just so Happy Madison and crew can go back to another retreat and film a movie there, so on their off time they can just hang out at a retreat and have fun, and then in the meantime, you know, make a movie and, you know, stitch it together and then release it onto Netflix for cheap laughs and easy money. But the main thing I want to talk about with this movie is how awful it gets near the end of the movie with delivering its message, how essentially you don't buy David Spade actually falling for this girl because you don't see any redeeming qualities in her either as an audience member. You just see, oh, she's doing something crazy again, but hey, it's for the benefit of David Spade, so now he's falling in love with her because he's selfish and just wants a higher position at his job. And it's like, it's either that or he's just being beaten into submission so much that once she finally does something that's good for him, even if it's still crazy, it's like he has Stockholm Syndrome, and he's like, okay, I'll accept it. I love you now, Missy. I don't need the right Missy. The wrong Missy was the right Missy the whole time. It's like, oh God, this poor man. This would have made for a really interesting psychological breakdown kind of movie. The same premise, but done in a drastically different tone. But of course, it's a comedy, so they got to keep the laughs going. It's supposed to make you feel good by the end. So they have this forced thing where the Missy goes on his phone, sees text messages he's been sending, the right Missy, going like, "Oh my God, I made a horrible mistake." And instead, that's what made it so weird too, because earlier on she's like, "Oh, I see. You must have brought like the wrong Missy here or something." Like I think she says a line exactly like that. So it's not like. And she's got to be aware that he is so annoyed with her. It's not like she's just acting like quirky, but it just sticks out amongst these corporate people. She's acting nuts. She's psycho, right? But of course, because the movie's trying to make you feel for her in the most cheap way possible, she gets hurt because David Spade is just pointing out the obvious. But of course, since he's now acting more happy around her, you'd think she'd look at these older text messages and be like, oh, well, this is a while ago, and he's kind of warmed up to me now. It seems like he kind of likes me now, so maybe I'm all good. Instead, of course, she does the I'm running away, and as soon as she does, the right Missy comes in, and even as David Spade's like, no, come back, she's like threatening to kill herself too, which is another thing that reminded me, like, oh yeah, earlier in the movie, she said, when you texted me, I was about to jump off a bridge, but I didn't commit suicide at that point. But then later in the movie, it's like, oh, I was just bungee jumping. I just decided not to bungee jump when you texted me. I was like, she's a manipulative, lying psycho. But this movie is trying to get you to feel for her and buy into this relationship that David Spade and her have, but there's no chemistry between the actors, there's no chemistry between the characters. Naturally, screenwriting-wise, this should not be happening, but of course, when the right Missy comes, he acts like a total fool and is like, I can't be with you, I need to be with the wrong Missy, I'm so sorry. And of course, she's just overly accepting of it, even though she bought so much money to go to this corporate retreat. You'd think she'd be like, dude, could you not have told me that, like, before I bought a ticket to come out here? Like, what the heck? Well, she did come, like, surprisingly, but you'd think maybe before I drop all this money to just bombard this guy who is with a different girl, maybe I should ask first, like, should I come at all? Like, once again, just stuff happening for the sake of stuff happening, and the movie ends with him tracking her down, and she's going on a blind date, and he's like, hey, go to that guy at the bar, and it's like, oh, it's a reverse of what she did to him earlier, so it's supposed to be charming, and Vanilla Ice is there, you get a great old Vanilla Ice cameo. And of course you have just the trite scenes of David Spade just professing his love, like, I love you, Missy, I love how out of the ordinary you are, I love the spontaneity of it, I want to be more like that, I don't want to be like average Joe. He essentially quits his job just because fuck it, you know, even though it seemed like it was a well-paying job, he does it just for the psycho though. She is technically kind of ruining his life, you know, leaves his job, well-paying, just to be with this crazy bitch who knows where he's going to end up, if he'll even get a job like that ever again. Who knows what's going to happen later in this relationship. The movie just abruptly cuts off when they make out, because that's the end of the movie, obviously. It's not like there's a much more psychologically disturbing part of this movie that you could have made a much more interesting movie out of, but Happy Madison doesn't make horror films. They did once. But that was only that one time, so that doesn't count. Get that out of here. No one saw that. Blah. And that's not even me reading into the premise going like, this had a really cool concept. Like, no, that's me making up something else out of the concept that they're giving, which is a comedy concept, which doesn't work and is lazy and really disturbing, actually, how they're trying to make it seem like yeah, you might meet a chick who's really psycho, ruining your life, making you feel uncomfortable, but as long as, you know, she does something for you every once in a while in her own crazy psycho way, then she's totally fine. It's like, no, that is such a horrible, really wrong message to try to deliver just for the sake of lightheartedness and laughs. This movie is really misguided in my eyes. I think it could have been something much deeper as far as this premise goes, but they had got to go the comedy route, which is, I want to talk about something else, which is why the title of this isn't really a movie review. I want to talk about something else, which is the idea that I heard from a couple people online, some of them are friends, and then I've seen it like randomly on Twitter at some points, the idea that Adam Sandler just got his Uncut Gems. I wonder which one of the Sandler friends is going to have their next Uncut Gems, or I wonder if any of them will have one at some point in the future. not all of them will have the same kind of success that Adam Sandler just had. Kevin James is about to have a film called Becky, which is coming out. It's not a comedy, it's like a thriller, and he's like the bad guy in it. We'll see how that goes. If Kevin James is willing to like spread his wings and not do lame comedies like Paul Blart or International Assassin or anything, or Zookeeper or anything like that, if he can mix it up like Sandler has. But that's the thing about Sandler that a lot of people, I think, just kind of forgotten, I don't know why, is that they act like any comedian can just be like a dramatic actor all of a sudden. They just got to pick the project, which is true, but Sandler has been kind of building to Uncut Gems for a while now too. He's done a lot of comedies made by him, produced by him in his filmography, but every once in a while you get stuff like Punch Drunk Love, and it's like, oh, well, this is much different. You get a movie like Spanglish, which isn't made by Happy Madison, but he's in it. And I know the movie is kind of mixed as far as the reception goes, but a lot of people are going like, hey, he wasn't all that bad in that, though. You got a movie like Funny People that he was in, a Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen comedy that put him in that was trying to be more of a drama as well as a comedy. So he's also testing the waters there. Like, let me try to spread out of the Happy Madison stuff for a second and do something else. He's got a movie like Men, Women, and Children made by Jason Reitman, which I know not too many people liked, but once again, it's not just a straight up comedy, it's also a drama, and he's trying to move out a bit more. You have the Meyerowitz stories, which came on Netflix, which is really great, and then Uncut Gems. It was all leading to Uncut Gems. Just because his filmography consists mostly of the comedies that he produces doesn't mean that on the side he's also willing to like spread out and do like, okay, let me try something else. Let me try to be a little artistic. Let me try to actually get in touch with a character that no one is really familiar with me playing before. And it was all leading to Uncut Gems. David Spade, Nick Swardson, Rob Schneider, are these other Sandler friends? Not all of them are going to try that because most of their filmographies consist of just the roles they've been given by Adam Sandler or these other comedies that Adam Sandler has allowed them to have, like a Joe Dirt or a Bucky Larson or all the Deuce Bigelow movies that Rob Schneider's in, or the Animal, you know, all those other comedy films. And whether you like those films or not, it's completely like subjective, like whatever. I'm not trying to say these movies are objectively bad. Just because I don't like them doesn't mean I'm trying to say that, but I am trying to get to this notion of like, you know, these Sandler friends, maybe they'll have an Uncut Gems at some point. I don't think that's the case. I feel like a lot of them are really riding the coattails of Sandler and just picking whatever he gives to them, whatever paycheck comes their way, like, okay, I'll do it, let's do it, let's shoot this movie, go on vacation, and then we're done. This is the same kind of model that it seems like a bunch of Happy Madison films have had before, where, you know, they get easy money by going on a vacation, they get a bunch of product placement in it, they get a huge paycheck, and then they just move on. They release the movie and they just move on. The difference between Sandler and his other Happy Madison friends is that he's willing to separate himself from it and do something like Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems, where these other Sandler friends really haven't. Kevin James, like Becky's like the first thing he's doing to finally spread out. We'll see where that goes. I hope that works out well for him and maybe can put him on a new path. I know he has a YouTube channel now, which is apparently like funnier than a lot of his films, so good for him. But these other Sandler friends, I don't think all of them have that kind of artistic drive that Sandler occasionally has too, which makes me like Sandler a lot more than everyone else. I don't think all of his movies work, but I like him personally. And these other Sandler friends, you can like them personally. They don't need like a gold trophy or they don't need some dramatic work to validate you liking them. You can like them for exactly what they do, that's fine. But this notion of eventually they'll have something like this, I think is a little misguided because they've been doing what feels like the same thing for so many years without change. So the fact that you think like, oh, just because, you know, Adam Sandler eventually got like Oscar buzz, talk, not even like a nomination, just talk of maybe he'll get an Oscar. He didn't. So maybe they were considering doing more drama stuff, but then Adam Sandler, not only did he get a bad audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Uncut Gems, which is of course all the Happy Madison people who are like, this isn't a comedy, what the fuck, but also the fact that he didn't even get nominated. He won a bunch of other awards for it, but just not the Oscars, not the top prize of it. Or the Golden Globes for that matter too. Maybe they're thinking like, well, if it's not the bigger awards, then fuck it, we're just gonna keep doing exactly what that we do. It was great that Uncut Gems had a, like, for an indie film or a movie with like less marketing than a usual Happy Madison film, it did make some money, so that's pretty good, but we'll just stick with what works and keep doing that to keep the cash flowing in. And obviously it's not a bad thing for them to have careers like that. They can do whatever they want, they're thriving, it's excellent for them. Not always good for if you're someone like me who really cares about movies as an entertainment form and art form. But whatever, they have careers and that's totally fine. But occasionally I do also wish for the, you know what, I wish they could just try something different, you know, take a risk with their career for a second, you know, like take a risk that they normally wouldn't, an artistic risk that might end them up with something really special. Maybe it won't work, but maybe it'll build the path for you to do something really great later on. Maybe try to be like Adam Sandler in this case. But unfortunately, it just seems like they're good with what they're doing, and they're probably not going to spread their wings and try to fly at that point. Like Lauren Lapkus in this movie beating David Spade into submission. It just feels like they've been beaten into submission as far as we gotta just keep doing exactly what we're doing. Then audiences will love us because it's, you know, cheap, easy laughs and cheap, easy movies to make for big paychecks. The main reason why I'm including this in the video in the overall discussion is that I hope to be kind of proven wrong. I hope Becky's good, by the way, for Kevin James, and I hope that leads to other opportunities later on, and I hope maybe someday these other Sandler friends who don't really spread out much or try to do anything different try to actually do that later on in their careers. That would be really great. I really want this part of the video to be proven wrong. But if it's not proven wrong, then this video stands the test of times forever, and I'm okay with that too. So moving forward, I know Adam Sandler just announced like he's producing a movie called Hustle, with some people. I don't know if that's going to be any good, but it seems like it's going to be like more of a drama. It's not going to be a straight up Happy Madison comedy. We'll see how that plays out, because right now in concept it sounds like it's different, but when the trailer comes out, who knows? It could be like Happy Madison trailer 101 and be like, oh no, we're totally screwed. But that was kind of the reaction when some people I know heard of it, like, oh, it's Adam Sandler producing a movie like Uncut Gems, this is great. Like, we don't know that yet, and plus Uncut Gems, it's great because he's not creatively involved in it, just he's in it and acting in it. So, you know, just because he just had Uncut Gems doesn't mean his career has totally changed. Let's remember that too. He's still gonna be Adam Sandler at the end of the day. Adam Sandler, who I like, and in a lot of movies that usually are bad sometimes, he's one of the better parts of it. Like Murder Mystery last year, that's not an awful Happy Madison film. It's got a lot of the same check marks that Happy Madison movies make, but I wouldn't say he's bad in it either. He and Jennifer Aniston work off each other well, so that kind of saves that movie. And if that movie doesn't work out, I still look forward to whatever Adam Sandler gets hired to do outside of Happy Madison, because I think nonetheless it'll still turn out really cool, like Meyerowitz recently, or Punch Drunk Love, or Uncut Gems, you know, all these movies I keep mentioning. But the Sandler friends, I would not get too excited for the potential of their careers, because it seems like they're going to stay in their lane and maybe not veer off the course of it, which once again, is fine. They can do whatever they want. I'm not trying to dictate their entire careers or say, they need to do this. Like, no, they can do whatever they want. It's totally fine. But, you know, as someone who watches the films that they're in and is kind of tired of seeing the same old thing over and over, it would be cool for them to at least try for once. But of course, I'm not going to get my hopes up, and I hope no one else is going to get their hopes up too. Once again, I hope to be proven wrong, but we'll wait and see on that. But anyways, The Wrong Missy, have you seen it? What did you think of it? It's awful. It's my least favorite film of the year so far. Worse than that Norm of the North movie, which doesn't have Rob Schneider, but so that's good, but he's in this, so, and that's worse, so whatever. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.